Holy shit! All right, guys, this is episode 2 of this thing that nobody listens to or watches. Well, you can't watch it; it's a podcast. But if you could, nobody would watch it. So anyway, guys, I hope that there are some people who hear this eventually, not just myself at 2 a.m. in the morning. So today, I wanted to talk to you guys about the impact of drugs and the spiritual awakening, or the impact of drugs and your spiritual growth as a human, right? As your personal growth going throughout your life, right? Assuming that you do reach, of course, the end of your life, and many people don't because of the influence of drugs. Now, to start this sort of podcast off, it's very, very important for me to disclose the fact that I love drugs. Drugs are great. Except they're so good that they will ruin your life because they are very addictive, some of them, if not physically, then psychologically. And drugs are something that, to me, in the past, were very, it had a sort of, it was definitely codependent, but it was a relationship of sorts, right? Well, it almost never started off that way. I've done cocaine for about a year. I've smoked weed for 2.5 years before really finding that it was just so not helping me anymore. And even though I realized that after the 2 years, probably realized that after about a year, it wore its welcome out. I've also done things like Xanax and prescription pills and mixed it with alcohol, and I do consider alcohol a drug. Energetically, it's very much the same thing, and I think even technically speaking, alcohol is actually a drug according to like the FDA and stuff, right? So, which makes sense, right? Firearms, drugs, alcohol, I think that's what they stand for. So, all that being said, how impactful are these things? How impactful were they for me, right? That's the whole point of why I give you a little backstory, is because I'm not here to say drugs are bad or drugs are good. There's no inherent truth to that at all about anything. There is no good drug. There is no bad drug. There are more addictive drugs. There are more harmful drugs. There are drugs that are easier to get. There are drugs that are harder to get. But no drug is good or bad or evil or righteous. It's just a substance. And in fact, what makes something bad or good is our relationship to it, how we define that specific thing. Even something as grand as murder is not inherently good or bad, because certainly we can cite somebody defending themselves against somebody trying to kill them, or even somebody trying to kill someone's kid, and the father or the mother maybe protects the child, and of course it results in a death, and accidental deaths, right? Murder, not really a thing that can be considered good or evil, nor can anything, and in this case, nor can drugs. So drugs are this wonderful opportunity for people to experience things. And drugs, by the way, doesn't just mean weed, cocaine, heroin, things like that. It does even go beyond that to, of course, pharmaceuticals, which you could argue are even worse than something like marijuana. And you can even go beyond that to what people might refer to as spiritual drugs, or things to help people with their awakening process, such as the popular spiritual plant medicine, ayahuasca. An intense thing. I've never experienced that, but I hear it's very intense. And then other things such as bufo, which is sort of like a DMT used to really, I guess, help people with their sort of spiritual process, to help them understand things about themselves, get over emotional blocks, wounds, inner core things, and stuff like that. I have done that before. I would never do it again. It was an awful experience, and I was pressured into doing it, I suppose. And on things even like combo, which isn't necessarily a drug, but it's a popular spiritual medicine where it's basically frog poison, right? This Amazonian sort of ritual where you burn some holes into your skin, the outer layer of the epidermis, and sort of apply some frog poison to that. And it sort of puts you into a state of anaphylactic shock, really. And it makes you feel, a lot of people throw up, cold sweats. They feel like they're going to die. I felt like I was going to die. I didn't have any amazing spiritual epiphanies or anything like that. It was quite simply just kind of what happened, a 20-minute experience. And after that, it didn't get rid of anything. Nothing changed. I took it like a year ago, and nothing, that never did anything for me, right? Some people, it does, right? Just as in the same sense that some people don't get addicted to drugs and other people do. And some people don't like smoking weed, whereas other people do like smoking weed, right? So this idea of how impactful drugs can be is such a wide-ranging thing, because they can be very impactful. Drugs are hugely impactful. And when I say an opportunity to experience something, that is absolutely what I mean, because drugs are an opportunity in the same way that an opportunity to go swimming might be appealing to somebody because it might do something for them. Maybe it relaxes them. Maybe maybe it's enjoying for them, right? Just it's an enjoyable thing to do. Feeling of the water, very not only is it relaxing, but it's very cleansing in a way. But of course, going swimming in the Pacific Ocean or any ocean could result in shark attacks, jellyfish stings, and of course just drowning. People drown all the time. People drown more than they get shark attacks. I don't want to make it seem like there's just an increase in shark attacks. Please God, no more shark movies. But so those things are, so it's impactful, right? Drugs are an opportunity, just as swimming, and everything has its dangers. Now, you can't really compare swimming to heroin, obviously not. But what I mean is that a drug is in itself just an opportunity to do something. It's an opportunity to experience something, and that's what life is an experience. So to put it plainly, if you're happy, if you are living in the present moment to the best of your ability, if you are in control of your emotions, in control of your life, you have goals, you seem to be headed in the right direction in life, you are supporting and taking care of yourself, you have plans, you're working towards something, you have some type of vision, basically boil all that down to you are enjoying your life currently. That doesn't mean life's always great, but you're enjoying it. There's something you're doing and you're enjoying it. If you are in that position, you would not need to escape into a drug. You wouldn't feel called to do drugs all the time. You might even never feel called to do it at all, because drugs take you away from present experience. They take you away from what you're experiencing right now. And that's kind of the whole point, isn't it? They take you away from something you're experiencing. Right now, if you're experiencing happiness and you do a drug, alcohol, or maybe you smoke a little weed or something like that, it isn't necessary that you're going to get addicted, nor does it mean that you're going to have a terrible experience. You might, and that of course depends on you, the individual, and the time and the circumstances of all that. But that's really all drugs are at the end of the day. It's just how you relate to them in a specific circumstance, right? So, if you're happy in your life and you like smoke weed, the chances are that's not something you're going to lean on, right? That's not something you're going to go do regularly. But if you find that there's something missing in your life and you are kind of emotionally blocked and there are some things that you're not working on and you're not very much living in the present, and maybe you're upset about some things and you have some kind of depression, weed, for instance, is not going to help you. And it's not going to make things better, right? And then on the flip side, how impactful can the drugs be? Well, for me personally, weed, I never smoked it until I was 23. And then it shifted my spiritual awakening. It shifted me into a spiritual awakening, I should say. I had some very intense periods of like getting in touch with my higher self, like experiencing things in such a way that it just unlocked this huge amount of potential, right? It was like weed was this, it was like going to a whole different university, right? It really expanded my mind, and it can do that to a lot of people. That's why I mentioned opportunity. Now, I don't think every drug is an opportunity. It's important to know that when I'm talking about drugs and spiritual awakening, I'm mostly talking about weed, alcohol, and sort of and things like that, rather than heroin, cocaine, opioids, right? Things like that. I'm not a medical doctor, nor do I need to be to say that those things should probably be stayed away from, but the same energy applies. So if you're listening to this, those things definitely still do have a role in what I'm talking about, of course. But I will say that weed expanded my mind, cocaine turned me into an egomaniac, right? So there was a difference between, there's these levels of drugs, right? But so weed, right, in my life, for instance, was very, it was very helpful at a certain time in my life when I needed it to be. And then after about a year of smoking it, things in my life shifted. Things weren't going so well. I met certain people that really catalyzed my life into different directions. I started to discover more about myself, and things started to make less sense. And I transitioned more into my spiritual awakening, which means that things that no longer resonated with me were becoming very apparent, and weed was one of those things. And I was never a drinker in my life, so I never had to worry about that. But weed was, and to an extent it is. I don't smoke it regularly anymore. I haven't smoked it in a while, but it is very still there's that pull sometimes towards it, because it can be it's a mellower, it's a numb factor, right? And the weed, at the time, just it became very apparent that it wasn't for me anymore, and that I had essentially graduated. There wasn't anything that it could do for me anymore, right? And that's kind of the thing about drugs and alcohol, right? These things is that they're a pleasure-seeking experience that you really wouldn't need, and that you probably never did before you did them. For instance, as a child, I was completely happy, or at least I was able to live in the moment. I wouldn't say I was a happy child, but I don't really particularly remember that much about my childhood. But I don't remember having the craving to do anything, and I never smoked weed in high school, so I didn't have I was fine in high school. And what I did notice is that I had this stigma towards drugs, towards marijuana, brought upon by my parents. And that was, of course, what made me depend on those things, because there was this part of my body that was never, the part of my emotional state, my mind, who I am, that was never allowed to experience these things in just a curious way. Not even that I would go out and do them. I don't think a parent's job is to hand them drugs and say, okay, go smoke that. But it is a parent's job to teach the children, to teach the child, the individual, what drugs are, what the dangers of drugs are, and even what the benefits of drugs are. Because the truth is, like I've been saying, there are benefits to drugs. Weed, again, it can incredibly expand your mind and really open you up to so much. And I'm happy for the experience. But it can also make you stay in a rut, can continue depression, worsen your depression, make you numb if you're having trouble. If you need to express grief and you're sad and you smoke weed, it just traps all that grief inside. There's nothing you can do about it, right? So what we're talking about here, when I'm talking about drugs, is we're talking about escapism. We're talking about moving away from pain and uncomfortable feelings in the favor of a pleasure-seeking experience. That is what drugs are. Or that's what escapism is. I'm sorry. Drugs can't be that, right? Drugs themselves, though, are just these things that, like I said before, are opportunities. Opportunities for many things. Opportunity to die. Opportunity to get addicted. Opportunity to have fun. Opportunity to relax. They're an opportunity for something. And it depends on the circumstance and you, the individual, and the reasoning, of course, why you're doing it, as to what that opportunity might entail. Cocaine, thankfully, never ruined my life, nor did I ever truly get addicted in the sense. And it was something that I was able to quit overnight. One night, I remember it was my 23rd birthday. I think I was this was the point where I hadn't yet considered myself spiritually awakened or on a spiritual path, but at this point I had been, what I look back now would be considered the dark night of the soul. Excuse me. And I remember going to a strip club. I don't know why. I wasn't just me, but other people invited me for my birthday. And strip clubs are awful. They're really, really terrible. I don't understand them. They're so awkward. I can never make small chat with the strippers. When they're giving you a lap dance, what are you supposed to talk about? They're always asking you questions. I don't understand. It's like, it's cold outside, just give me a lap dance, I guess. I don't know. I've never been good at it. Strippers have always been able to suss me out, and they always sense that I'm like some sort of maybe out of place there. So they always come to me and tell me their real names and secrets and stuff. and or whatever, talked to me, didn't want to go back to work, because I think they knew that I was the only person in there who wasn't objectifying them, and who wasn't really there to get lap dances and things. Though obviously I definitely did, but that's another story. But when I was there, I went there, 23rd birthday, and it was smoking weed and doing cocaine, which isn't it's not a very good combination. But I did them, and so I was very high. I got back around 10. I know, sad birthday, right? And came back around 10 to my house, and I remember having this little bag of cocaine in my room, and it was, I don't know how much was in it. Who knows? Half a gram, maybe a gram. I don't know. Probably wasn't a gram, but it was a substantial amount. And I remember just kind of doing like a bump around like 10:30, and then I remember that like the next thing I knew, it was like 2 a.m. and the whole bag was gone. And it's like I came online, like it's like 2 hours for a blip. Like I don't remember that. I just remembered like coming back online, so to speak, and just sitting on the edge of my bed, just like dipping my wet finger around this bag. And then I remember going like, what the fuck am I doing? And if you know anything about cocaine, then you'll understand that the way it chemically works is it drains all of your dopamine. I forget the actual word. There's a process. I learned it in psychology, but apparently I didn't actually learn it. But I remember going into that class high on cocaine one time. But they so there's this process. It takes all away, takes your dopamine and stuff. So by the end of the night, you're not able to feel anything, right? Nothing. I mean, nothing. At least with weed, you can feel other things. You can listen to music and feel things. You can still feel pleasure sexually. Yeah, but cocaine is nothing. There is no distraction. It is just an empty shell. That's all it is. That's how you feel. You feel like some sort of doll, trapped inside of a doll's body. You don't feel like yourself, right? It's a dissonance by the end of the night on cocaine. And I just, in that moment, I was like, I'm never doing this shit again. And I quit it right then and there. But smoking was more difficult to quit because it's more psychological. And to me, weed was a dependent on something along the lines of spiritual growth, because it did help me open my mind. So it was hard to let go of it, not so much because it blocked out the pain, but it did do that. But it was more because it allowed me at the time in the previous history of smoking that I could get answers from my higher self or experience truths and stuff like that. But I graduated. I've already graduated, so that is never going to do that for me anymore, right? So now with weed, my relationship with weed is more like a distant cousin, somebody that at times I may have to go see, but I certainly don't want to spend too much time around them because maybe they're just a little bit racist. But maybe I can play basketball with them, but I don't like the fact that they're racist. So you know what? Distant cousin stays distant cousin, right? Sort of that kind of idea, right? And so I try to keep it away as much as I can. I still sometimes have like a desire to see them, but unless that desire presents itself as an opportunity to relax, which may not even be perfect, but at least it's better than escaping pain, then I might go visit that quote unquote distant cousin, right? But drugs, impactful. So it's like drugs have this deep impact in your life. And when it comes to your personal growth and your spiritual growth, they do serve a purpose. They have a level of vibration, right? These kinds of things, right? So all the hard drugs, right? They're low down because they're meant to really get physically and psychologically addicted to something, which makes them super hard to quit. And I haven't had the experience with heroin and opium, crack, and all that other kind of stuff, meth stuff. I haven't done any of that stuff, which I'm thankful for. But they are lower vibration, and they keep you. They're not there to really expand you. Then there's things that like alcohol, which could go either way. I've never had a relationship with alcohol in a negative way. I might have one cider occasionally and relax and sit somewhere nice like a patio and look out to whatever scenery it is that I find pleasing. And it's kind of like a cliche writer experience, and then that's fine with me. But I think at 21 was the most drinking I ever did, which is probably true for everybody, at least in the United States. And after that, it was I didn't care anymore. I'm also an incredibly light drinker, so I get drunk very quickly. That's why I tend to stay away. And then there's things like DMT, weed, um, these mushrooms, acid, which I've never done either of. And maybe mushrooms would be okay to try. I'm not too sure. But these types of things, they have this vibration, and they can of course expand your mind, but they can also ruin your mind, and you can have terrible trips. People have wonderful experiences on acid, and other times they have terrible experience on acids, and maybe they only did it one time and it's either or they've done it multiple times and experienced both, right? So there's, again, it depends on the circumstance and what you're really meant to experience there, and how impactful something really is to you. And then there are those kinds of more plant medicines, ayahuasca, things like that, which are they're not escapes. They're not. They're a level above escapism. You can't escape with ayahuasca. You can escape into spirituality, but you can't escape into ayahuasca or bufo, things like that, because it's not a pleasant experience. It's not something you want to do. You're afraid of doing it because your ego is basically taking this huge hit every time you do. It's essentially creating or causing an ego death. If not there, then at some point it kind of just removes shit from you. And people have like breakdowns, like they cry, they see shit, they experience feelings they never felt, they remember things they buried. It's not a pleasant experience. So the vibration of it is very, very high because it's there to remove something from you. It's keeping you from your spiritual path. And so those things are not escapes. So they're a higher level of vibration. So a lower level of vibration is just how much you're trying to escape from reality, and how much that escape and how far that escape takes you. Certainly the escape of heroin takes you farther than the escape of weed. But they're all escapes essentially. So the impact of drugs, boiling it back down in really summary, is that it's positive and negative to your experience, right? Things like weed, DMT, mushrooms, acid, they are tools you can use at a certain point to help you grow your mind, but you need to know when to let go, and you need to know why you're doing them in the first place. Because if you're doing something to escape uncomfortable feelings or pain, then you're only causing more harm for yourself, and you're actually delaying the healing or the peace and happiness that you're actually wanting to achieve through the drug itself. It's sort of a paradox, or a catch-22, I guess, is what I guess would rather be a way of describing it. Right, and people do this already, right? Eat food, relationship with food, things like that. If you're escaping pain, drugs are a great way to do that, but that's not going to help you, right? So drugs are incredibly impactful for your spiritual growth. They are, absolutely, some of them anyway, but they don't have a place for the master. They don't have a place in your life for someone, if you're someone who is happy, fulfilled, and really just in high vibration, and vibrating very high, someone who has a vision. The more you want to accomplish in life, the more that you're going to want to sacrifice things. And then if that's true, they're not even going to be really sacrifices. They're just going to be something that you choose to just not do. So drugs, impactful? Yes, very. Are they important to life and experience at this point in the human history, in this human collective? Yes. Are they important, and can they be beneficial as well as disruptive for your spiritual growth? Yes, absolutely. Are they something that you should continue to do your whole life? No, they're not. They're just not, because the happier you are, the less likely you would want to take away from that experience. Right? If you're happy and present in the moment, why would you don't naturally have a desire to escape it, or to remove, or to do something else. So I hope that makes sense, guys. I hope this podcast well received. Thank you guys to whoever listens, if anybody does. And I hope that you guys have a great day. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up, and I don't know how to end things. I'm not a very good ender. Never been able to end relationships, platonic or otherwise. I think I just let the universe do it for me. So not sure how to end things. Do people just say goodbye? It's always awkward, because it's not really goodbye. There's always something else you want to say. Anyway, I don't. Bye-bye.